What you got? What you got?
We're live. Woohoo!
Which one? Let's start with Shakyamuni.
Okay. I got something from them yesterday.
We'll talk about him first when people decide.
Like I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't like for all the like fruit extra crap they put in there. I'm like, this tastes like nothing. It was like cinnamon vanilla or something like that.
Should we start at the 1 minute mark or?
Yeah. We need to wait for people to like join.
Well.
One person. Hello.
One. No. Let's wait until like 1:15 just so people can get in.
Yeah. It's scheduled for 2:50, so anyway, so that's perfect. Literally how to make it over here. I suck. I'm sorry.
I can't believe you've done this.
Big offense.
All right, everyone. So we'll get started. So what we're going to work with today is going over the quote-unquote Tibetan Buddhist deities as a part 2 to working with deities. So deity, God, those are poor translations for what are appropriately called the Yidam. And these are the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas that are found in the sutras and the tantras. They're the ones that are practiced in Tibetan Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, the Vajrayana paths. In Theravada, sometimes called the Hinayana, they're mentioned in the sutras, but they're not typically propitiated. Their mantras are there, those are recited, but they don't have full practices necessarily. But we'll start with Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the Buddha of our time. Most people know him by his name, Siddhartha Gautama. He was the Buddha who achieved enlightenment. So this is a statue. This is a very Theravada image. This is what you would see in like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. But this is the Buddha. You see that he has the meditation mudra. His hands will always be in different positions based on what part of the life of the Buddha is being shown. This is just him in contemplative meditation. But in the Tibetan traditions, we have something called Guru Yoga. And anyone can do Guru Yoga with Shakyamuni Buddha. This is just an imagining of the Buddha's mind mingling with your own. And people will typically do this either to confess faults or to gain insight into things. So if you have a question, going into meditation and imagining your mind and Shakyamuni Buddha's mind melding together, you can get your answer. In the Vajrayana traditions, there's a mantra for pretty much every Bodhisattva, every Buddha, every Yidam. And Buddha's is Om Muni Muni Maha Muniye Soha. Move on from Buddha. Okay, so here we have Kuan Yin in kind of a triad. So it looks like here she's holding a lotus. Here she's holding a scroll, I believe. That's the teaching mudra. Here she's just, it looks like reciting mantra, helping beings of the world. This is half prayer mudra. So Kuan Yin is the Chinese, Kannon is the Japanese version of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. In Tibet, he is known as Chenrezig, but in China and Japan, they are known as Kuan Yin and Kannon respectively, and they take on a female form. This individual, this Yidam, is the Bodhisattva of compassion. Very catch-all. A lot of people will pray to her. I'm looking at the crown, and it almost looks like the mantra is in there written in Tibetan, actually. In Chinese, her mantra, I believe, is Om Kuan Yin Pusa, Om Shi Yin Kuan Yin Pusa, something like that. But I practice Tibetan, the Tibetan tradition. So the mantra for this Bodhisattva is Om Mani Padme Hum, all hail the jewel in the lotus. All mantras are just the names of the bodhisattva, sometimes put poetically. We have some that are very literal, such as Vajrasattva, Om Benza Sato Hung, which is the Tibetan interpretation of Om Vajrasattva Hung. It's just the recitation of their name. But specifically with Chenrezig, it's Om Mani Padme Hum, hail the jewel in the lotus. But this bodhisattva is of compassion. So this one is one of, maybe the only one actually that I know of, where imagining oneself as this quote unquote deity is beneficial and permitted. With a lot of Tibetan tradition, you have to have certain permissions to view yourself as the deity. But with Chenrezig and possibly Medicine Buddha as well, their vows to help humanity were so vast that there's nothing you can really do wrong. And it is very beneficial to imagine yourself as Chenrezig, to imagine in front of you Chenrezig, above your head Chenrezig, all of the things that you see in phenomena are Chenrezig. But the vow of Chenrezig, of Kuan Yin, is to help any sentient being who calls out their name. So just by reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, or the Chinese equivalent, this bodhisattva comes to their aid. So next is another popular one. This is Green Tara. Now, Green Tara, Amitabha, and Chenrezig have a story together. There's two stories about Green Tara. One is that she was a princess and that she had some troubles in life. She went to an enlightened person and they told her to do these practices. And there was even a monk that said, you should work toward gaining a male rebirth in your next life. And she vowed that she would attain enlightenment as a woman, and anytime she would reincarnate, it would only be in the female form. Tara is also a bodhisattva of compassion, but it's swift compassion, compassion in action. It's a compassionate help done faster, if that makes sense. She's a green color because in Tibetan Buddhism, there are 5 colors, and each of these colors represent a different Buddha family. Green is the karma family. Karma means action. So this is compassion in fast and quick action. She is a remover of obstacles, and she responds very quickly to those who come to her. In fact, her sadhana, her meditation practice, is recited very, very, very quickly, and it's recited 3 times. But there are 2 main ways to work with her, and that is through her mantra, which is Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha, as well as her 21 praises, which you can find various translations of online. They mostly come through the Atisha lineage, and they mean the same thing. They're just slightly different translations. In Tibetan, they're all spoken the same, though. So that's the 21 praises, as well as her mantra, Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha. And then we have white Tara. So there are actually 21 Taras altogether, and that is why the 21 praises of Tara are honoring those 21 emanations of Tara. White Tara is specifically for long life, healing. There was one other attribute of hers, and I can't remember. Long life, healing, and the other one eludes me. But there are 3 long life deities often practiced in Tibetan tradition, and that is Amitabha, White Tara, and Namjalma, or Ushnisha Vijaya in Sanskrit. Sita Tara is White Tara. Healing, longevity. I really can't remember the third one, but she is another form of Tara. If you notice, she sits cross-legged, and she actually has, it's not painted on the statue, but she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eyes. So she has the 3 eyes, the 3 on her face, and then 1 in each foot and in each palm. 7 eyes altogether. And with this, she is able to see the suffering of the world. So for those who need healing, for those who wish for a longer life, for those who are undergoing health issues, she's a good one. Her mantra kind of varies, and I'm not one who practices her much. It starts, all of the Tara mantras will start the same, Om Tare Tu Tare Turi, and then Mama Punsa Se Soha, I believe, is her mantra. I could be wrong about that. I encourage you to look that one up, because she's not one that I typically practice, but she is a deity for health and longevity, if that is something that you wish.
Yeah. Wait.
So then here we have, this is another version of Tara. And she is standing. Now, in India, when Buddhism was coming up, Tara and Avalokiteshvara were both pictured in a standing posture, and it wasn't until later that they were pictured sitting. So here we see her quite literally in action. So she has the Abhaya Mudra, which is safety and protection, as well as the teaching mudra, it looks like. So she's inviting all to come to refuge for her, or come to refuge to her, as well as teaching compassion. Usually you'll see a second lotus. I see only one over here, but a lot of times you'll see a second lotus. And this represents her purity, that she is enlightened. She comes up out of the mud without taking any stain of mud, much as the lotus does. And again, her mantra is Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha. At the end of this, I will also talk a little bit about how, like, setting up a space for them. But that is standing Tara. Here we have Kuan Yin again, but this is Kuan Yin just as a single statue and not the triad like I showed earlier, like I had shown earlier. So this bottle is actually wisdom nectar, and typically she's shown holding a willow branch that she dips in and sprinkles to bring comfort to sentient beings. Again, this is the deity of compassion, the main deity of compassion, Tara being another one, but comes quicker, if that makes sense, and removes obstacles. She removes fear. Kuan Yin, this is for those who need help but don't specifically know what that help maybe is. Tara is kind of like removing the obstacle, if you know what it is, as well as removing the fear that comes with dealing with that obstacle. And again, Om Mani Padme Hum, or her Chinese mantra, which again evades me. All right, so now this one is very much in my tradition and in my practice. We recite his mantra a lot. He has two names. Guru Rinpoche. Guru means teacher, Rinpoche means precious, or Padma Sambhava. Padma is the lotus, and Sambhava means born from. He is the lotus born. The legend is that he spontaneously came up from a lotus. He's not of human birth. Guru Rinpoche, or Padma Sambhava, is recommended for those newly entering the Tantrayana paths, the Vajrayana tradition, specifically like Tibetan Buddhism. He helps you learn. He can remove obstacles. There's a famous prayer, the Lamsel Barche, I believe, or Barche Lamsel. I might have that backwards. Which is a prayer recited to remove obstacles on the path. So if you're trying to get enlightenment and you have a lot of obstacles like financial problems, health problems, reciting this prayer, the Barche Lamsel, will help get rid of those obstacles so that you can attain enlightenment. He is the tantric master who brought to Tibet the first transmission of Buddhism from India into Tibet. The Nyingma tradition is what he founded, and that was the first tradition of the tantric Buddhist practices in Tibet at the time. And his mantra is Om Vajra Sa.
Yeah, it was just fun. And then I was gonna walk up to you and just do one of those.
I'm losing it. What is it?
I was talking to Alyssa, and then I don't know where to put it, so I guess Boris just.
It'll come to me. But as you can see, his implements. We have a bell and dorje. These are the two tantric implements that are given to any tantric practitioner that are used in our practices. The vajra, or the dorje, represents lightning, indestructibility. It can represent a diamond, but it represents the indestructible mind, the true essence and nature of our minds that cannot be tarnished or soiled. It's our Buddha nature. We have the bell, which represents compassion. You'll see this in the hands of a lot of the tantric deities, as well as the forms of Tara, because compassion. We have the Katvanga, which represents the subjugation and taming of the mind. We have the hair knot, which represents the Ushnisha, the top knot that is seen in many enlightened figures, such as Buddha himself.
My name's Aaron too.
He's probably one of the most, if not the most recognizable figure in Tibetan Buddhism. And I'm trying to think of other things to speak about him. You'll see this on the back of a lot of statues and thangkas. This is somewhat similar to the halo. It is not a halo. It's the jeweled background that just represents they are precious. They are seen as holy. It's not a light emanating. It's more just a mark of this is a precious being. His mantra, though, is Oma Hum Vajra Guru Pema Siddhi Hung, or in Tibetan, Oma Hung Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hung. Okay. So that's for the statues. So we do carry this oracle deck as well, and I've seen this before. Like I've flipped through it before. A lot of good images, especially from my tradition, the Kaju tradition. There's the Mahakala Bernak Chan in here, which is the Mahakala of our tradition. This, I believe, is a Dakini. I don't believe this is any specific deity. This looks like just one of the Dakinis. The Dakinis are sometimes translated as angels or fairies, and I don't like that translation. My personal translation for them are enlightened muses. On the back, we can see Ganapati, who is Ganesh. He's honored in our tradition as kind of more of a wealth deity, a wealth bodhisattva, not so much an obstacle remover. For that, we have Tara. And then here is Vajrapani Hayagriva. Vajrapani is the protector of the tantric teachings. It's believed that Buddha had two main attendants, and he gave the tantric teachings to Vajrapani to protect. But this is a beautiful deck. I don't have one that's open, and I really do like it, but it is Buddha Wisdom, Shakti Power. We used to carry Tara candles, and I'm sure Melissa will have those again. But they're just a glass encased candle, kind of like the red one you see over here. And it's green, and it has the image of Tara on it, and I'll explain why that can be helpful in a moment. Like I said, I'll explain at the end how you can work with these enlightened beings. So this is just an image of Buddha, which is always beneficial to have around. But we also carry mini Tibetan prayer flags. Now, there are whole rituals that are done when hanging these, and there are certain directions and everything. But basically, if you can download a Tibetan calendar, and there's so many different calendars, there's a Drukpa calendar that is available online to download. If you download that, it will tell you specific days to not hang prayer flags. Aside from those days, there's not really a bad day to hang prayer flags. If you do it, though, it is to be done on a windy day, a clear day, and in the morning. These deal with raising what's known as lungta. And this is kind of like a spiritual reputation. It's not capacity. That's wangtang. That's a whole other thing. Lungta is kind of like... I can't think of a good English translation for this. One of my teachers, when they were explaining it, kind of explained it as you can have people who are really, really good at art, but only some of them are ever recognized. Those who are recognized have high lungta. It's not luck necessarily. It's kind of like reputation. But when raising these, you would put them, again, windy day, clear day, in the morning. The different directions that you would hang them in rely upon your Tibetan astrology. That's a whole calculation and everything else. But the only bad days to hang them are when Tibetan calendars say explicitly bad day for hanging prayer flags. Any other day is a good day. So I'll put these away. And then I don't think we have the candles now.
Sitting on a shelf. I'm like,
So
But yeah, the candles are on the list of things that we're gonna get. So if you end up, oh hi Lourdes, I think you're gone now, but I know you. Anyway, if you are interested in getting the candles or something like that, we don't have them up yet. Send us a whisper on Twitch or reach out to us via social media. We'll print some out and get them out to you. As far as the deity statues, again, not sure if they're on the website or not. If you can't find it on there, but you wanted to purchase one, just send us a message so we can get it out to you.
All right, so we'll just put Guru Rinpoche there so you have something to look at while I talk a little bit. So in working with them, like I said, reciting their mantra is enough. The nice thing about the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas are their whole vow is to save and to help and bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. So there is virtually no restriction on the ones I've shown you in reciting their mantra or in asking for their help, even just praying from the heart. The reason the Tara candles are nice is because offering light, offering lamps, which is aloke in Sanskrit, brings illumination to the mind. It brings illumination to the world. Usually when these lights are offered, it's offered with a prayer of aspiration that you achieve something or do some kind of good work. But the idea is, like in many traditions, lighting that candle or lighting that lamp brings illumination and it brings clarity and it brings light to situations and to the world. It dispels the darkness and the ignorance of the mind. With Tara, or really with any deity, even just getting a nice little tea light holder and placing a tea light inside of it, lighting it, and reciting, in this case, Guru Rinpoche's mantra, will bring benefit for yourself and for others. Again, unless you get into the higher tantras where you do need explicit initiation, the Bodhisattvas, Kuan Yin, Chenrezig, Tara, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, White Tara, Buddha himself, they vow to help all sentient beings. So simply asking for their help is a great way to work with them. Again, praying from the heart, reciting their mantra, or offering light. If we get the Tara candles back in, or if we get other candles for them, that's a great thing to do. Otherwise, you can just find a nice little tea light holder, offer a nice little tea light, or invest in an actual butter lamp. Learn how to fill butter lamps and offer that. There is really no set way in working with them. We see different ways that people in the Mahayana traditions work with them. People in the Vajrayana work with them differently. Of course, those in the Theravada traditions, I'm sure, work with them vastly differently. I'm not very experienced in the Theravada traditions, so my practice is mainly the Karma Kaju, which is a Tibetan tradition. But if there are any questions, feel free to message the shop, and they can field those questions over to me. And if you leave any comments, I can respond to those. Do we have any questions so far? We'll end in a few. I'll give it 1 minute, and if there's no questions, we'll end.
She's really good with just like physical health, energy-wise in general. So I'm sure that she'd be able to help you not as far as actually diagnosing. I'm not sure about that, so I don't want to make you know what I mean. But I do think as far as like working with physical health stuff, Maria is a person.
Otherwise, you can listen to the hum.
Church ladies get you every time.
All right, it doesn't seem like there's any questions, so I hope everyone has a good day. See you sometime soon, hopefully.